कल्याणम् आरोग्यं धनसम्पदः शुभं कुरु त्वं कल्याणम् आरोग्यं धनसम्पदः शत्रुबुद्धिविनाशाय दीपज्योतिर्नमोऽस्तुते दीपज्योतिर्नमोऽस्तुते दीपज्योतिर्परब्रह्म दीपज्योतिर्जनार्दनः दीपज्योतिर्परब्रह्म दीपज्योतिर्जनार्दनः दीपो हरतु मे पापं सन्ध्यादीपनमोऽस्तुते ओ दीपब्रह्मरूपस्त्वं ज्योतिषां प्रभुरव्ययः ओ दीपब्रह्मरूपस्त्वं ज्योतिषां प्रभुरव्ययः आरोग्यं देहि पुत्रांश्च मतिं स्वच्छामि मे सदा रवेरस्तं समारभ्य यावत् सूर्योदयो रवेरस्तं समारभ्य यावत् सूर्योदयो भवेत् यस्य दृष्टिर्गृहे दीपः तस्य नास्ति दरिद्रता शुभं कुरु त्वं कल्याणम् आरोग्यं धनसम्पदः शुभं कुरु त्वं कल्याणम् आरोग्यं धनसम्पदः शत्रुबुद्धिविनाशाय दीपज्योतिर्नमोऽस्तुते दीपज्योतिर्नमोऽस्तुते शुभं कुरु त्वं कल्याणम् आरोग्यं धनसम्पदः शुभं कुरु त्वं कल्याणम् आरोग्यं धनसम्पदः
Namaste to all. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon. Wherever you are in the world, thank you for joining us today. I'd like to take this opportunity as more participants join us to thank Ayuryog. Ayuryog Expo is India's first world assembly on Ayurveda, yoga and naturopathy. The first edition was organized at the India Expo Center and Mart at Greater Noida in November 2019. It proved to be the biggest platform for the domain of Ayurveda, yoga and naturopathy. Today, we are honored that the head of Ayuryog Steering Committee and Director of India Exposition Mart Limited, Shri Vivek Vikasji, is here with us. I request him to please present the welcome note.
Thank you so much, Shri Harshvardhan Javeri. Namaskar to all dignitaries. It is a pleasure to have such eminent members on our panel for the 6th webinar of Ayuryog Expo, a world assembly on Ayurveda, yoga and naturopathy. Today we have with us Grandmaster Akshar, founder, chairman and course director of Akshar Yoga, President of the World Yoga Organization, and President of International Siddha Foundation. We also have with us Mr. Eddie Stern, co-founder, Ashtanga Yoga, New York, and Dr. N. Ganesh Rao, professor and PhD guide in yoga philosophy and the founder of ACT Yoga. And of course, the moderator of this webinar is young yogi Harshvardhan Javeri. We can see that there are many yogis, philosophers, CEOs, and founders of yoga and wellness companies, associations, and educational institutes are here. We can see commendable response from international stakeholders as well from 40 countries. The idea of Ayuryoga Expo was conceived by Guruji, Dr. H.R. Nagendra, and our chairman, Shri Rakesh Kumar. It was executed at India Exposition Mart Limited at the international level to benefit the mankind under Guruji's blessings and guidance. In 2019, the first edition of Ayuryog Expo received humongous participation from Ayush industry. In fact, the international footfall alone was more than 1,000, which is a huge number for Ayush exhibition sector. This time in 2020, Ayuryoga Expo will be held in October. Now today's topic is Pranayama to combat COVID-19 induced anxiety, stress, and insomnia. I think this is one of the most important topics of the phase 3 of lockdown. More than 700 people registered for this webinar within merely 24 hours. With my best wishes, let us start with the webinar. Mr. Harshvardhan Javeri can take over.
Okay. So I think we'll have a short video right now. Requesting Praveen ji to please, yes.
Yeah.
The topic for today's webinar is Pranayama to combat COVID-19 induced anxiety, stress, and insomnia. But before we talk about Pranayama and its multitude benefits, I invite us all to think a little bit more on anxiety, stress, and insomnia. What is anxiety? Anxiety is basically the uneasiness about a future uncertainty. And this uncertainty about the future brings an imbalance to the present mind and body functioning. It causes a mental agony due to unwanted and unfiltered thoughts. The word for anxiety in Sanskrit, we can say, is chinta. Patanjali, in the Yoga Sutra, uses the term daurmanasya. He says it is an obstacle on the path of yoga. Chinta is characteristic of a shipta chitta, or a scattered mind, and can be overcome through the practice of yogic techniques. Now let us see a little bit about stress. Stress today is actually synonymous with distress. But there is also a good stress which enhances one's functioning. It is called eustress. Eustress is healthy and positive. But today, when we think of the term stress due to semantic change the word has undergone, we think of distress. Distress is a klishta vritti. It is harmful, afflicting, and it is also the cause for many other diseases and suffering. Pranayam helps to create an internal stress, an internal pressure change, which tones the nerves and the flow of energy and improves the functioning. And finally, insomnia, the inability to fall asleep or remain asleep for an adequate amount of time. Patanjali says nidra, sleep itself, is a vritti. And according to Patanjali too, therefore, insomnia will be a klishta vritti. But this too can be overcome through simple and effective yogic techniques. Pranayam can combat all these three and much more than that. We have plentiful scientific evidence to show the health benefits of pranayam. Swami Kuvalyanand, yogi and scientist, founder of Kaivalyadham Lonavla, is primarily known for his pioneering research in the scientific foundations of yoga. He started this research in 1920 and has performed laboratory experiments on yogic techniques and is published in the scientific journal Yoga Mimamsa. Swamiji showed through these experiments the physiological and psychological value of pranayam and gave equal stress to its spiritual value. I request the panelists to not just throw light on the scientific value of pranayam, but also enlighten us on its spiritual significance. So now, without further ado, I'd like to begin with our first speaker, Grandmaster Akshar. Namaste, Grandmaster Ji. Grandmaster Akshar is an internationally
Namaste.
master and visionary from the Himalaya. He is the founder, chairman, and fourth director of Ayuryog, and is also the president of the World Yoga Organization and International Siddha Foundation. Grandmaster, while maintaining yoga's ancient tradition, has pioneered a metamorphosis of yoga in order to stimulate the mindset of a younger generation of yoga practitioners. His mission and vision is to aid people with the tools and learnings to live the best potential life through yoga. Thank you for being with us here today, Master Ji. You have 15 minutes and the floor is all yours.
Pranam. Thank you very much, Harshvardhan ji. Prayers for you and Praveen ji. Shri Vivek ji, आपको और आयुर्योग को बहुत बहुत शुभकामनाएं. Prayers. Ganesh Rao ji, pranam. Edison ji, pranam. Namaste. So, first of all, it's amazing the way how this whole event is organized, and we are in a tough situation worldwide. But here, I feel this is a very strong opportunity for yogis, for spiritual practitioners, for Ayurveda experts, to see that there is end to all our practices, and we can explore more now. Allopathy is not having any answer right now, but everyone knows that when they are practicing yoga, they are able to see that transformation. For stress, for anxiety, for depression, for anger, for everything, all over the world, the first instruction is yoga and pranayama. So I think it's a very good time for all experts to go more deep with the researches, because when time is good, everything is good. But when time is tough, here we have a chance to prove what more is there. So when we're talking about pranayam and how with the help of pranayam we can face these challenges, let it be for stress or for these anxiety problems, we'll do a very small experiment. Please, if you all can take your hand out, right hand, and bring this hand closer to your face and look your hand, observe your hand. very gently come out, relax there, rest. Now in this position, just to check by yourself, we were breathing or we were holding the breath. When we were observing the hand, our breath was on hold or it was flowing. This is the situation, and the situation is very safe, my own hand. And if my breath is flowing naturally, there is no pressure on my body. I'll be able to experience that peace and that energy. But if I'm holding my breath, this shows that I'm taking pressure. Now from here, we can go deep. As we go deep with the situation, the pressure goes. It should become our reflection that we are always in ease with our breath. That is why we have multiple of breathing techniques. Sometimes when practitioners, they ask that why we have so many breathing techniques. The reason is this: one technique can help the person. There is a possibility that same technique may not work for that person, so we have another technique. But the ultimate purpose of all these pranayamas is to make you balanced, that samasthiti, whether you are in a very tense situation or you are in a very safe situation, your breath is flowing naturally. And breath is our life. When we are breathing, that means life is inside. And when we stop breathing, we are dead. So I'll talk about Himalayas, how we experiment pranayam there. High altitude gives you a different understanding of same breathing technique. If I'm living in society, living with my own work, with my people, with the world, here I'm not able to gain that power. I may practice, but I may not be able to gain that power. So Himalayas, they give you opportunities to gain your power of breath. And the same power can be used when we are with our life. So practice part, as per Himalayan yogis, siddhas, the masters, they prefer that we should have a very strong atmosphere to build our pranayam powers. And with this platform, I would like to share this message also, that those who are practicing pranayam in these ranges, they really know something beyond. For example, a very simple pranayam named Brahma pranayam or Bhastrika pranayam. These breathing techniques, they have specific color. These breathing techniques, they have their own taste for us. And if we go more deep, they have very strong geometry. They have strong science. When we say yoga is science, the science becomes when each practice is having scientific practices inside or scientific tools inside. So the geometry part is there in Bahaya pranayam or Brahma pranayam. The elements, they are there in Bhastrika pranayam. And the thing which I shared, the taste part, each pranayam is having specific taste, specific color. These special things or special trainings, they are done by these old practitioners, those who are just practicing for the sake of their own growth. They work for their self-development growth. And they have these secrets. I feel when we are going deep, when we are talking about the scientific researches, we must involve these minds. They will add tremendous amount of value to our practices, because we just started. My practice is hardly some 30 years. So I know 30 years, but these people, those who are doing from 70 years, 100 years, they have tremendous amount of knowledge. What more is there? Another thing, there are more than 300 pranayam techniques. And these all techniques, they have their own impact, benefit on human body. Each human is different. So the pranayam formula or technique, even if I take a simple breathing technique, Kapalbhati, Kapal is my skull, Bhati is that shine. So it works on that intelligence, it works with my neurons, it works with my cell, right brain, left brain, and how it evolves you with your knowledge. But the Kapalbhati, same way, like how we were studying in our school days, in our college days, sometimes we never used to like specific subjects. reason that it's not connecting with us. Same way, we have very limited pranayamas right now. Hardly some 30, 40 pranayams are available for mankind. We need to go deep with our research to these mountains and take blessings, and I think we need to take them on board to bring these confidential pranayam techniques, because they will do wonder. I shared the message that there are more than 72,000 channels in our body. These 72,000 channels, they are controlled by 72 pranayamas. Each pranayam controls 1,000 channels, but they have sequence. The sequence is with these divine masters. So this is a big responsibility, I think, on all of us, those who are practicing and those who are doing this research. I'm very hopeful the way how, especially the India government, we are pushing yoga and Ayush ministry, and the way how Ayuryog took initiative to bring yoga on that level. We can go deep and take help from these scholars, these divine people, to bring that sequence of 72 pranayam. Right now, pranayam is available, but it is in different breaks. Like if I say how to start, so we start with Bastrika, we go to Anulom, Vilom, Kapalabhati, which is perfect. For sure, they have only benefit on us. But to gain more, because yoga is like ocean, we can keep moving down, we can keep going down and treasure and treasure and treasure. We need to work on that sequence, how it starts and where it goes, how we conclude that 72. I'm very hopeful if we are able, the way how we are involved with the science of yoga, we need to bring that system of yoga and the sequence, the discipline of these pranayam practices, the discipline of mudras, how we can bring them, that also will help us. The sequence of asanas with each pranayam, with each mudra, they will make our practice very powerful. For our practitioners today, those who are looking for some pranayam technique, they work really strong for immunity, and everything is linked. If my immunity is strong, I'm strong with my gut, I'm strong with my confidence. So these issues of depression, these issues of anxiety, they don't trouble. So you are powerful. So pranayam like Kapalabhati, pranayam like Khanda pranayam, they have very strong impact on our lymph nodes and spleen both. And very, in short, our immunity is on WTC, WBC, white blood cell. And these cells, they are in different sections, B and T, and they are created, they are manufactured in our body, in our lymph nodes and spleen. So our pranayam need to be done in such a way that it impacts these organs. Kapalabhati is king of pranayam because of this reason. It really works with our lymph nodes and it will do wonder for our immunity. Practice of 5 to 10 minutes of Kapalabhati is very strong to build the immunity. And Khanda pranayam. Now Khanda pranayam is something which I received from a place on Chandratal. It's in Himachal Pradesh. There I was fortunate to receive this from Kolantak Peet Ishaputra. He was merciful to transfer this confidential pranayam. But I experienced this with more than my thousands of our very close in-house teachers, and they all experience wonderful results, especially for their stamina and their willpower. And whenever we get opportunity to trek and go towards Himalayas, they experience that benefit. So this pranayam also I would like to share with all our practitioners, all our wonderful spirits. Kapalabhati, everybody knows how we do, where exhale is our impact. We are working on exhale, and inhale is natural. And in Kapalabhati, again, there are different levels. From our side, from our Himalayas, we practice this on 3 different sections. One is on Shant Gati, where Kapalabhati is done slowly. One is Madhyam Gati, where Kapalabhati is little fast. It goes with the medium speed. Then you do with intensity, where you have strong command on both the nostrils. So it's again interlinked. Before Kapalabhati, I must have strength of Surya Bhedi and Chandra Bhedi pranayam. So I think that all our teachers and all our practitioners, they must be aware. So Kapalabhati is something which I would like to share with all our wonderful practitioners. And second is Khanda Pranayam. Now this Khanda Pranayam is pranayam which is done in part by part. This Khanda Pranayam is Dvikhand, where we divide the breath in two parts. And this impacts our system in a very powerful way. It is observed when we go above 14,000 feet on altitude, on 16,000, we are able to multiply our energy. So that was the reason why I received, because of our movement to high altitude practices. So Khanda Pranayam builds our lung capacity, and this is our observation. I wherever I travel and I practice, I observe we always miss our capacity of lung. So if we can go deep with these processes, if we are able to involve our breath with our lungs, and if we are able to use that potential of our lungs, we'll experience wonderful results. Lots of things we can achieve. We can build our mental capacity, our spiritual capacity. Everything depends on prana. Right now, this virus is also coming from air only. It's coming from outside to inside. So same way, if we have virus which is coming in from outside, we have possibility where we can bring energy from outside to inside. So that's what the power and beauty of pranayam is. Yes, so this is from my side, Harshvardhanji. My best wishes for all the practitioners, my prayers to the organization, those who are organizing this wonderful event, prayers for this planet. I pray to Divine Himalayas, to the Masters, this situation past and go back to our life. Prayers, pranam.
Thank you so much, Grandmaster Aksharji. And to remind us to basically build our pranayam muscles. These are muscles that we all have, and we must all exercise them. Now we're being stuck in the situation, wherever you are, that is the best place for you to practice pranayam. So I hope that Grandmaster Akshar's words were inspiring, and we move to our next speaker. Our next speaker is Eddie Stern, a globally well-known yoga teacher, author, and lecturer from New York City. He most recently created the breathing app, which guides users in resonance breathing, which balances the nervous system, helping to improve sleep and reduce stress and anxiety. One simple thing, a new look at the science of yoga and how it can transform your life, is his first solo book. I had the privilege to meet Eddie in December last year, and I can say that he is a very humble man with a strong and positive scientific approach to yoga. Thank you, Eddie, for being here with us today, and the mic is all yours.
Thank you very much, Harsha. And thank you all for having me here on this webinar. It's very kind of you to invite me. And, thrilled to be here. So following along with your instructions to us, Harsha, we should be speaking about anxiety and stress and sleep in relation to pranayama and also the spiritual benefits of pranayama. And I will begin with, rather than anxiety, I'll start with stress, and which you very rightly observed is a general term that talks about how our system, our nervous system in particular, is responding to environmental demand. So our nervous system is that part of our being which is organizing the information flows of every cell in our body in communication with the external environment. And it has evolved over many, many hundreds of thousands, in fact, millions of years, to do particular things. And one of the primary things the nervous system does is it keeps us alive. We have the survival instinct built into our nervous system from the time we were single-celled organisms, that we would move away from danger, we would move towards safety and move towards nourishment. So down to every single cell in the body, we have the impulse to survive, to move away from danger, to move towards safety. And so as we began to evolve into more complex multicellular beings, this stayed within us, and it's largely housed in the brainstem, where our survival functions are being housed and processed. And so one of the things that the survival functions are doing is organizing communication through the autonomic nervous system, through the parasympathetic and sympathetic nervous systems. And the sympathetic nervous system is largely what is going to help us to perceive threat in the environment around us. It also moves us to activity, but the sympathetic nervous system will be recruited when there is any danger, any threat. The parasympathetic nervous system will be recruited when it's time for cellular repair, for things like sleep, digestion, anything which has to do with rest. Now, when it comes to a situation like the coronavirus, one of the things that begins to happen is we begin to perceive threat all around us, and that's necessary for our survival. And when we get into situations in global levels or even individual levels where there is a prevalence of threat, our sympathetic nervous system will begin to measure threat even where threat may not exist. So the first thing that happens is the nervous system senses a threat from the external environment. Information is coming in through the sense organs. We're hearing things, we're seeing things, we're sensing and feeling things, and the nervous system will respond by saying, there's a threat. And then what happens? The automatic response to threat is the stress response of the sympathetic nervous system to preserve life. And so then we begin to feel what we identify as stress. The heartbeat might speed up, the blood pressure might rise, we might feel heat in the palms of the hands or heat in the body. And as this stress becomes to extend in duration, it turns into anxiety. And the anxiety then, when that's extended, turns into fear. And then the fear then turns into irrational behavior. And that's a lot of what we see definitely in America or other places where there is a lot of hoarding of goods and extreme shopping of supplies. This is from irrational behavior and from not modifying the information that's coming in the proper ways. So this is basically the cycle. The nervous system perceives danger. Stress arises, a distress, as you accurately called it. That distress leads to anxiety. The anxiety leads to fear. The fear leads to irrational behavior. And so what we need to do is we need to de-escalate this. We want to begin to downregulate the sympathetic nervous system response and begin to upregulate the parasympathetic nervous system response. And this is largely mediated through something called the vagus nerve. So the vagus nerve is 90% of our parasympathetic, 80% of our parasympathetic nervous system. And one of the things that the vagus nerve does, which is very important, is it regulates inflammation in the body and also regulates the stress response in the body. So when we go into a sympathetic response and there is a big release of the different types of chemicals and hormones that are activated through this, adrenaline and cortisol, there are other things that are released as well that are called cytokines. And the cytokines are very small secreted proteins which are important for organizing the communication and sharing of information between the cells of our body. And there are anti-inflammatory cytokines and there are pro-inflammatory. And one of the things that the COVID virus is causing is a extended storm of pro-inflammatory cytokines that begin attacking the tissues of the body, particularly the lungs, causing inflammation and pneumonia. So the pro-inflammatory is helping to cause the pneumonia, and that's one of the ways that that COVID-19 is largely attacking the tissues of the bodies and the lungs. With pneumonia, the air sacs begin to fill up with fluid and fill up with pus, and COVID-19 in particular is attacking something called surfactant, which is a substance secreted in the lungs, which allows the air sacs to stay open in between breaths. So we have this virus, which is attacking the tissues of the body, causing a cytokine storm of pro-inflammatory molecules, which is then causing our ability of our air sacs to stay open in between breaths. And then the patients go into an acute respiratory distress because they can't get enough oxygen into the body. So just as a little bit of an aside, we're not saying that any pranayamas are going to prevent this from happening, but just as a little bit of information of what the doctors and what the scientists are reporting COVID-19 is doing to us. So now let's just go back to the vagus nerve. The vagus nerve is the thing, the part of our nervous system which regulates inflammatory response. When we are in high levels of anxiety, high levels of stress, the sympathetic nervous system is turned on and inflammation begins to increase in the body. So what are the things that we want to do to begin to downregulate this? We begin to work on the information flows in the vagus nerve. So how do you tone the information flows of the vagus nerve? Is very simple. There are 4 basic things which have been recommended to do that by Dr. Stephen Porges, who presented this theory called the polyvagal theory. Number 1, breathing is very effective for toning the vagus nerve because we have vagal nerves that come from the brainstem down in through the larynx, into the heart and the lungs, the diaphragm, into the stomach, the liver, the pancreas, and into the intestines. So in the abdominal viscera, we have a tremendous amount of vagal nerves. And through rhythmic breathing, like the rhythmic breathing we do in pranayama, many different types of pranayamas, we begin to send messages of rhythmicity, of safety, and of balance and harmony through the abdominal efferents, through the vagal nerves up to the brain to help downregulate the sympathetic nervous system. Okay, so that's number 1, through breathing. Number 2, posture. Anytime we put ourselves into deliberate postures, even sitting up straight, it sends messages to the baroreceptors near the carotid arteries that are monitoring blood pressure. And so when our blood pressure begins to rise, of course, anxiety ensues. But when the blood pressure is low and balanced or at an even level, then our emotional keel is better balanced as well. So any postures that we do, asanas or deliberate sitting up postures for pranayama, helps to monitor and balance blood pressure, stimulating the vagus nerve. Number 3, vocalization. Humming pranayamas like Brahmahari are going to be toning for the vagal nerves, especially stimulating in the throat. The chanting of Omkara as well is going to lower blood pressure and balance vagal tone. And then last is behavior. So anxiety and anger interrupt vagal tone, and gratitude, kindness, feelings of loving kindness, feelings of compassion, maitri, karuna, mudita, all of these are going to help to balance vagal tone as well. And when vagal tone is balanced, information flows coming smoothly up and down from the brain to the body, which then reduces stress, reduces anxiety, and also will help to prepare the body for sleep. Because when inflammation is too high and the sympathetic nervous system is turned on, then we have an excess of rajoguna. And then tamoguna, which is related to deep sleep, when it's balanced, will not be able to activate. So by the reduction of rajoguna through calming the sympathetic nervous system, we also prepare ourselves for sleep. And then the last thing is that when we can downregulate the sympathetic nervous system, upregulate the parasympathetic through calm, even breathing or any of the suggested pranayamas, we begin to quiet the mind. And when the mind becomes a little bit more calm and quiet, we can begin to change our perception of what a stressful event is. And this change of a stress perception is very important, because when we're looking at the world around us, if we perceive everything out here is dangerous for me, my nervous system will respond by protecting me through the release of all of these inflammatory particles. But if I perceive that the world around me is not dangerous, I can handle it, I have the resources and the reserves and the techniques and the support to deal with what the world is sending to me, then I will begin to look at stress not as a negative, but as something which is a challenge that will strengthen me, that I can grow from. And therefore, the change of perception that I have towards stress is a very important part of dealing with anxiety, with dealing with sleep, with dealing with how I can grow spiritually from challenging situations, that I use them to my benefit rather than to my destruction. And now, when it comes to the great questions of who am I? What is my purpose in life? How can I serve best? How can I fulfill my potential? To ask these questions is the crux of any spiritual life. But to answer them, we also have to have a calm, clear, relaxed mind. If we have too many thoughts, if we're really stressed out, we can't ask these questions and we can't feel the answers that are coming. So the pranayama practices will help to, number one, reduce sympathetic activity, overactivity, increase vagal tone, calm the mind, change stress perception, and prepare our mind so that we can inquire deeper. Who am I and what is my purpose? How can I serve? And how can I be a benefit to the people around me who need help during these trying times? Okay. So I think that's my 15 minutes. Did I use 15 minutes or do I have 1 minute left?
If you want to say something more, you can. Yes, Eddie.
The only last thing I want to say is I didn't talk about any specific techniques. So for a simple technique for people who have no experience with pranayama, a simple one to do is to, when you inhale and exhale through the nose, bring your awareness high in your nasal cavity near where your sense of smell is, the olfactory nerves. And you imagine you're smelling the smell of a rose or jasmine or sandalwood as you inhale, and you exhale, you keep your awareness high in the nasal cavity near the olfactory nerves. And this long nasal breathing will help to make you not worry about taking a deep breath because you're just focused high in the nasal cavity. This helps to stimulate nitric oxide, which is an anti-inflammatory released by the body, which it's also a vasodilator. And it's very good for creating a relaxing response in the body. For people with no experience with pranayama, imagine you're smelling the rose as you inhale and keep the awareness there as you exhale, and then gradually lengthen your breath to inhaling for 6 ohms and exhaling for 6 ohms. And you do that for about 7 minutes, everything calms right down. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti.
Thank you so much, Eddie. That was wonderful and splendid. The entire flow diagram that you gave us of how pranayama reduces sympathetic activity and finally brings us to a change in the stress perception, which is actually, even though these are physiological happenings that are happening, they lead to something that is spiritual. So something physiological can lead to something spiritual, a spiritual development. So thank you, Eddie, very much for that. That was lovely. And finally, our last speaker, Dr. Ganesh Rao, founder of ACT Yoga, Authentic, Classical and Traditional Yoga. Dr. Rao is a professor and a PhD guide in yoga and philosophy and is well known in the yoga community as a teacher, well rooted in yogic principles and practices. He is unique, sharp, and one is humbled by the ocean of knowledge that he shares with the world. Dr. Rao has greatly influenced many lives, including mine, and I just cannot wait now any longer to hand over the floor to him, really. Thank you for everything, Dr. Rao. So you have 15 minutes and the mic is all yours. So we cannot hear you. Yes, now it's okay.
It's a pleasure for me to share this platform with learned people, with Shri Vikas ji, Praveen ji. I also would like to thank Shivani ji of Hello Ema Yoga who contacted me. An occasion to share certain information, certain knowledge, certain wisdom for benefiting the people in these circumstances. We are going through challenging times all over the world. And you could not have chosen a better topic than the efficacy of pranayama in dealing with stress, anxiety, and insomnia. You could have added lots of other mental ailments also. Before I start on the pranayama part, just to throw light on what I understand by anxiety specifically. I'm also a professor of psychology, so a little bit on that side. Out of the 3 disorders that you have spoken about, stress, anxiety, insomnia, probably stress is the mother of the other 2. Yeah. And stress is the mother of all psychosomatic ailments, all mental disorders, because it starts with stress. And normally we define stress as the response of an individual when he or she perceives that the demands made upon him or her are more than his resources to handle it. Yeah. I repeat, stress is the response of an individual when he or she perceives that the demands made upon him or her are more than his or her resources to handle those demands. The catchword here is perception. So stress is a matter of perception. Stress is not objective at all. Stress is totally subjective. And I have come across individuals who are geniuses in creating their own brands of stress. I mean, life may be going hunky-dory, but they're stressed out because stress can be created by us totally. It depends upon our perception. So stress is subjective. It is rising from the way my mind is working. First point. I will not go into stress too much because this is not pertaining to stress. And when that stress starts happening, as Eddie spoke about, the response of the nervous system and the endocrine system to that disturbed response of emotions starts the ball rolling. The sympathetic nervous system along with the adrenal glands gets charged up and all problems start happening at the somatic level. But not going into that, when you come to anxiety, I don't know by default you have chosen this word or it has come by, but this is very, very apt to the situation we are facing. We distinguish between anxiety and fear. Fear is always having an object. I'm always afraid of something. But when I have fear and there is no object, it becomes anxiety. So in the present scenario, all of us are going through anxiety because this virus is invisible. We are not able to tackle it. We are not able to see it. And that is why it's creating an anxiety because we don't know from where it will come, what it will do. It's totally an invisible enemy. So anxiety is the most appropriate term that you have used for this platform. Anxiety is fear which does not have an object. It's a free-floating fear and it can get attached to anything, to your doorknob, or to the vegetable basket that you are bringing, or to the bananas and mangoes you think you should wash it with soap water or sanitizer, because there is no end. The mind is very fertile in creating our own brands of stress, anxiety, fears, and this situation is the same situation. When you come to insomnia, again, insomnia arises mainly from stress there when the mind is overworking. And we are not only talking about insomnia from sleeplessness point of view, but even lack of sleep, even the inability of going back to sleep when you wake up for maybe going to the toilet or some part you have disturbed and then you're not able to go back to sleep. That also comes in sleep disorder. So all of them, if you look at from a common point of view, all of them are related to the mind. So the question is, how do we hold this mind in place so that we are able to confront not only coronavirus, but any situation which brings about stress or anxiety or insomnia? And being a practitioner of yoga, probably a teacher of yoga for the last 20 years almost, there is no practice in yoga as compared to pranayama, which is more appropriate than handling the problems of the mind. Pranayama in our textbook is referred to as Paramatapa, the highest form of tapa practice. And tapa is, it is the burning of the impurities into yourself, of yourself. Pranayama practices, even if you go by our textbooks, it fetches you benefits on 4 levels. One is on the physical level, what we talk about anatomy or structure, where the respiratory system is strengthened by doing proper breathing practices. One is on the physiological level, the systems in the body, and that is how Hatha Yoga talks about pranayamena yuktena sarva roga kshaya bhavet. All the diseases can be removed. Diseases of all the systems can be removed by doing pranayama practices. So from physical, physiological, we come to the mental, and that is where the strength of pranayama is. Because Hatha Yoga says, Chale vate chalam chittam nischale nischalam bhavet. The mind and the breathing are invariably connected. Every disturbance in the mind disturbs first the breathing. Unfortunately, when the mind is disturbed, we try to control the mind by the mind. And that is where the problem is. Most of the time we are unsuccessful. When I am angry, I do the damage, and then I resolve, I will not get angry henceforth. But within next 10-15 minutes, when the same stimulus comes, I get angry again. Because the question is, who got angry? It's the mind who got angry. Who is deciding I will not get angry? It's the mind which is deciding. You cannot easily control the mind by the mind. In yoga, for controlling the mind, we use breathing. Because breathing and mind are invariably connected. You can see for yourself, when you get angry, your breath becomes faster, shorter, erratic. When you are sad or depressed, your exhalation becomes longer, you're sighing. When you are surprised, you gasp. When you are afraid, you choke. All are changes in the breathing which is happening. Every disturbed emotion, without going into theory or going into physiology, you know that the disturbed emotion immediately affects your breathing. And from the breathing, it goes to the soma. When we talk about psychosomatic, it's a Western concept. If this has to be brought in the Indian lore, it has to be psyche, pranic, and then soma or the body. If you look at our personality, we talk about manomaya kosha, pranamaya kosha, and then annamaya kosha. So in between the mind and the body, there is breathing there. Whereas when we talk about psychosomatic ailment, we talk about only psyche and soma, and we forget the most important part, the breathing part there. And that is where the efficacy of pranayama comes about. That this pranayama, in fact, even pranayama, I would like to bring this distinction in this platform with so many viewers there. We are talking about pranayama and assuming breathing as pranayama practices. We must qualify this statement very clearly. The prana in the body is absorbed through various ways. The food that I eat gives me prana. The water that I drink gives me prana. The sunlight gives me prana. The air that I breathe gives me prana. And the most important factor, people around me give or take prana. Most of the time they take prana. So from various sources, we are getting prana in the body. Why do we use breathing for pranayama practices? Pranayama etymologically means prana plus a plus yama. Yama means control of prana, and the in-between term a is stretching. So control by stretching of prana. Yeah, we stretch the prana for controlling it. Now the question is, why are we using breathing for pranayama practices? In fact, I can tell you that at least 90% of the people who are doing something called pranayama are only doing breathing practices. They are not doing pranayama practices. Because from breathing practice, shwasa prashwasa ayam, to go to pranayama, your levels of awareness has to rise very high so that you are in touch with the prana in the body and able to feel the flow of the prana properly. That is where the pranayama starts happening. But even when we do the breathing practices, yes, the benefit to the prana happens, but without awareness it happens. So by default, the benefit starts happening by breathing practices. We are using breathing for doing pranayama practices because out of all the sources that we have spoken about, the food, the air, the sunlight, the breathing is the only involuntary activity in the body which can be made voluntary even by normal people. That is why we are trying to manipulate or touch the prana at the level of breathing. Having said that, even if you take pranayama brings about two generic benefits. I was talking about the 4 levels of pranayama. The first level on the physical side, the second level on the physiological side, the third level directly on the mind, and the 4th level is what Harshavardhan mentioned, the spiritual level. So if you look at Patanjali, the effects of pranayama Patanjali says, Tataha kshiyate prakasha avaranam dharana sucha yogata manasaha. Pranayam practices make your mind fit for dharana. That means the mind is coming under control. And I can tell you very clearly and very nicely in this statement, this platform for people to think, control of mind is equal to concentration. This is a very insightful statement. If you are able to concentrate your mind, you are having your mind under control. And Patanjali says, Dharana Sucha Yogata Manasa. Pranayam practices will make your mind concentrated. And the second, Tathakshiyate Prakasha Avaranam. The avarana or the covering over the inner light becomes less to the point of disappearance, so that light starts shining forth, or self-realization or the spiritual goal is met by doing pranayam practices. So all four levels, physical, physiological, mental and spiritual level is taken care of pranayam practices. There is no better antidote than pranayam for handling stress, anxiety, insomnia and all other related ailments of the mind. Having said this, I'm coming down to the level of practitioners. When we say pranayam practices are controlling the breathing, what do we mean? At a very, very basic level, the first point to be understood is the slower your breathing, the more the threshold of your taking stress. Speed of breathing, which is speed of mind, is stressful. The slower the breathing, less the stress automatically. I mean, one can go into the physiological part of it later on, but this is very clear. Slower your breathing, less the stress in the mind. And this fact can be observed when you look at a small baby, 3 to 6 month old baby sleeping in front of you. You will find that when the baby is blissfully sleeping, the baby's stomach goes up, the baby's stomach comes down, goes up, comes down. We practitioners of yoga will look at that breathing and say the baby is doing yogic breathing, because it is totally abdominal breathing. From the nostrils, the air goes up, the lungs are expanding, diaphragm goes down, stomach comes out. Our normal breathing requires the stomach to come out. But if you look at our own breathing, so-called successful people, so-called people who are made up in life, if you look at our own breathing, you will be shocked to see the shallowness of our breathing. And if you ask why my breathing is so shallow, shallow to the point even my lungs are not expanding a little bit also. It is so shallow. Why is my breathing shallow? Because there is too many problems here. Every problem in the mind disturbs the breathing. Every conflict disturbs the breathing. Every relationship issue disturbs the breathing. And every ambition not fulfilled disturbs the breathing. At the end of the day, the breathing has become so shallow, totally shallow. With that shallow breathing, how can your mind be peaceful? So at a layman's level, when we say pranayam can help in anxiety, stress, the first point is, can I just sit down and do slow, long breathing, slow, long inhalation, slow, long exhalation? This itself will go a long way to take care of the stress in the mind, the anxiety in the mind, and insomnia. In fact, when you talk about insomnia, there is a beautiful observation in one of the textbooks, probably Shiv Samhita, that you should sleep when your left nostril is breathing. You should eat when your right nostril is breathing more. We are biologically going through what is called as alternate rhinitis. At any point of time, one breathing breathes more than the other breathing. The left nostril is the Chandra Nadi, which is stimulating the parasympathetic nervous system. The right nostril is the Surya Nadi, which stimulates the sympathetic nervous system. The Hatha Yoga textbooks are so precise. They say when your left nostril is breathing more, when it says breathing more, if you look at your breathing, at any point of time, one nostril breathes more than the other nostril. This is not because we are lopsided. This is because, or this is not because we are a faulty piece. This is because it is biological, it is alternate rhinitis. At any point of time, the heart supplies more blood to one nostril. The blood vessels are dilating more there. The aperture is reduced, so the breathing becomes less there. So automatically, we are lopsided in our breathing. So Hatha Yoga text says, when your breathing is on the right side more, eat food. When your breathing is on the left side more, sleep. I mean, to that much, precision, pranayama practices are given there. So the first point which I want to say is, do not try to go into deeper, complicated, complex practice of pranayama. First, try to make the breathing slow and long so that you are able to utilize the entire capacity of the lungs. We are utilizing 30 to 40%, not more than that. Our vital capacity may be 500 cc. Yeah. What are we using? We are using maybe 10%, 15% of that. Just if you watch your lungs, not even expecting going down. The mind is always on the edge because the breathing is so short. So the first principle, make the breathing slow and long. The second, being a sports person, I can give you one more, connection there. The lungs and the heart are generally working in the ratio of 4:1. The heart is beating 72 to 80 times per minute. The lungs are respiring 15 to 20 times per minute. So if you take 80 and 20, it is 4:1. Very clear. Now, when you make the breathing slow, the heart also tends to work slow. When these two involuntary organs are working slow, automatically the parasympathetic shift happens to all the organs in the body. They tend to get tranquilized. You start feeling calm and peaceful in the body. Look at this breathing. This breathing, this pranayama is the most perfect antidote to stress, anxiety, and insomnia in the current scenario there. Coming to pranayama practices, if you look at, since all the people are there, coming down to layperson's practice point of view, the first point I've said, make the breathing only slow and long. Whenever you get 5 to 10 minutes anywhere, don't do anything, just watch your breathing and make it slow and long. The second is, our pranayama practices are categorized into two basic categories. They are either tranquilizing or cooling, or they are energizing or heating. They're extroverting or introverting. So depending upon what you want to do with your system, you utilize that. For example, if you take Suri Bedan, if you take Bastrika, they are all heat generating. They're stimulating the systems in the body. If you take Brahmari, Shitali, Shitkari, they are cooling down, tranquilizing. So depending upon what you want to use for the state of your mind, you use the basic. Pranayama has got a tremendous, I'm so happy that Grandmaster Akshar said that there is 72 types of pranayama. I wish to learn from him some of the practices, at least whenever we happen to meet, so that I can learn more and more. Because this research on the personal front, experiential front, happens automatically. The last point, I know I have exceeded my time. The last point of which I want to say, the most important point, and that is where I'm laying emphasis on what Harshavardhan said, is on the spiritual side. First of all, when we talk about spiritual, no religion involved there. For me, spirituality is the level of awareness of a person. In yoga, if we have the human personality as the body, the mind, and the spirit, the body is the physical and the physiological, the mind is the mental, emotional, and the psychological, and the spiritual part there. The mind is subtler than the body. So when you take care of the mind, the body automatically becomes healthy. That is what we talk about psychosomatic ailments. 95% of physical ailments are psychosomatic. So if you take care of the mind, the body is automatically healthy. But if you have to take care of the mind, the next subtler element in us is the spirit part. And that spirit part is the consciousness. And that is what we are aiming in meditation. When my meditative experience becomes fruitful, successful, I am able to touch that awareness, which is pure awareness without any object in it. That meditative experience, when I bring in my day-to-day life, I talk about not doing meditation, but being meditative. Not doing yoga, but being yogic. The only distinguishing factor is, can I become more and more aware in my day-to-day activities? Personally, I feel awareness, there is no remedy for the mind like awareness. Without going into philosophy, most of the time, my consciousness being identified with the mind, all my problems happen. When the mind becomes sad, I say, I am sad. When the mind is angry, I say, I am angry. Because this I, what I talk about, the consciousness in yoga, I identify with the mind and take upon myself all the problems of the body and the mind. If I am able to wean this consciousness away, and look at my mind being sad, this sadness has got no control. It loses energy. It becomes a dead. When I am angry, If I'm aware I'm angry, I'm no longer angry. As simple as that. The statement is very paradoxical, but that is what it is. That is why when some person gets angry and the person does the damage and resolves, I will not get angry. The basic question is, when you are angry, where were you? Because when you are angry, you are not there. You are angry, you become angry. If I am able to look at my anger, which is awareness, if I am able to be aware of my states of mind, these states of mind have got no control over me. I am totally in charge. And pranayama practices take you towards that level of awareness. I said two generic benefits of pranayama. One is the stock of prana going up in the body, which is energy, which makes your mind very positive. Another is the frequency of the pranic vibrations increasing, your awareness level goes up. So stock of energy and awareness level both go up by pranayama practices, and that is where your anxiety, fear, your outlook towards the future, everything becomes positive and well under control by pranayama practices. Thank you very much. I think I have exceeded 2-3 minutes more, but thank you very much. And thank you for all the listeners whom we can't see, but so much enthusiasm. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Rao. That was very beautiful and crystal clear explanation. Since we are running out of time, I would like to move on to some questions.
Yeah.
So I'd like to first, just one moment. Yes. So for one, we have one question. When we perform bandha with pranayam, what is the right way to do it? During inhalation or during exhalation? Can we have one of the panelists to answer this question? Probably, can we have Eddie Stern?
Sure. Thank you very much, Dr. Rao, for that amazing talk, and also Grandmaster Akshar and Harsha. In terms of the bandha, we have three of them: Mula bandha, and Uddiyana bandha, and Jalandhara bandha. And the Mula bandha is the contracting of the internal anal sphincter upwards. The Uddiyana bandha is of two types. One is the Uddiyana kriya, where the lower abdominal muscles above the pubic bone lift up, and then we have the Uddiyana bandha, where the entire abdominal region sucks up underneath the thoracic cavity towards the ribs. And then Jalandhara bandha is the locking of the chin by the collarbones. This is very stimulating for the vagal nerves, by the way. And the net of the jala is all here, and this is all a lot of important nerves in this area. The Jalandhara bandha is only done on the inhale of the Puraka Kumbhaka. After you inhale and you're retaining, you only do it then. And Mula and Uddiyana bandha can be done either for an exhale retention or an inhale retention. Either is taught. But for an exhale retention, usually it's not taught to do the Jalandhara bandha. And so the question is, do you do it while you're inhaling or while you're exhaling? Usually bandhas are done in pranayama at the conclusion of an inhale or the conclusion of an exhale, especially the chin lock. However, the Mula bandha and Uddiyana bandha can be employed for during the exhale, because it will help keep the spine straight and control the flow of the exhale. And then when you do the inhale, usually the Mula bandha might release a little as the breath is flowing in. Physiologically, that's what happens. And then at the end of the inhale is when you, again, lift the internal anal sphincter and do all of the locks. So easiest place to find the bandhas for people who are working on them, the end of the inhale or the end of the exhale. And then for the control of the exhale, the smoothness of the exhale, which is very important for down-regulating sympathetic response. This is what the exhale is going to upregulate parasympathetic nervous system. Mula bandha can be used then to control that flow of the exhale. And interestingly enough, the vagus nerve, which is toned and stimulated through the lengthening of the exhale, has been associated in some sources with Sushumna Nadi and with Kundalini. So there's some tie in there which is very important. I hope that answered the question. I think anyone on this panel could answer it equally well, if not better.
Thank you. Thank you, Eddie. So we have another question, and many people asking this actually. They want to know some simple techniques, simple pranayam techniques that they can perform. So can we have Grandmaster Akshar, please? Can we please address the audience?
So, very simple breathing technique is Bhastrika Pranayam, where you just sit down, relax with the body, calm down, and inhale, hold that breath in your lungs, in your chest, and then exhale. Inhale, bring that air in your lungs, hold here, and then exhale. So that Purak, your Kumbhak, and Rechak, it depends on that person, how the person is practicing. For beginners, they can start with their 5 minutes of practice. And as you grow with your practice, you can go for 10 minutes, 15 minutes, half an hour. And if you are very strong, then go for 1 hour. Bhastrika Pranayam is very simple and very easy technique, which all of us, we can do.
Thank you so much, Grandmaster. So one last question, since the time is up. While doing pranayam, I have to perform abdominal breathing or normal breathing? Dr. Rao, please.
First, we should go to the definition of pranayam. In Hatha Yoga, pranayam happens when there is retention. There is kumbhak. In Patanjali's definition, pranayam happens even without kumbhak. Bhaya abhyantara stambha vritti, desha kala sankhya bhi paridrishta dirgha sukshma. So when inhalation is prolonged, one type of pranayam, according to Patanjali, when exhalation is prolonged, where there is a gati vicheda, where there is a break in the pace of breathing, pranayam happens. So two ways of looking at it. Yeah. So if we are talking about pranayam from the Hatha Yoga point of view, then we are holding the breath. Holding of the breath can be either retention or suspension. When you breathe in and hold the breath, you're retaining the breath. When you breathe out and hold the breath, it is suspension of the breath. Antar kumbhak and Bhaya kumbhak. So pranayam involves inhalation, holding the breath, exhalation, and then if you want, you can hold the breath after exhalation also. Yeah, this is typically the pranayam that we are doing. If we want to have so-called spiritual benefits from the Hatha Yogic point of view or Tantric point of view, where the spiritual benefit starts arising with the awakening of Kundalini, then we are introducing the bandhas there. So whether you are doing Mool Bandh, Udyan Bandh, Jalandhar Bandh, the bandha there, where we are talking at the physiological level as voluntary neuromuscular locks, at the level of yoga or pranayam, bandha is the locking of the flow of prana in one direction and redirecting it in another direction. That is the purpose of the bandha there. And this arresting and redirecting is what finally results in the Sushumna Nadi being active and then the prana entering through there, the Sushumna Nadi. This is the normal pranayam that we are talking about. So for a lay person, one can breathe in, hold the breath, breathe out, pranayam practices, or make the breathing as slow as possible. Inhalation slow, exhalation slow, again pranayam happens. Is that okay, Harsha?
Yes, that's good. That's good, Dr. Rao. Thank you very much.
Have I answered the question or was it something which was missing? Can you repeat the question again?
The question was exactly, when we perform pranayam, do we do abdominal breathing or should we do normal breathing?
No, 1 minute.
Yes.
Now I knew that I was missing the question because I want to clarify on the other point also. When the person is saying normal breathing, okay, the person is under an illusion that normal breathing is normal. No, normal breathing is faulty breathing. Abdominal breathing is the correct breathing, because when you breathe from the nostrils when larynx goes to the air pipe, the bronchi, lungs are expanding, the diaphragm goes down, stomach comes out. This is normal. So normal breathing is abdominal breathing. Whereas our normal, like all other normal things in modern man's life, the normal has become faulty. Abdominal breathing is normal breathing. Because if the diaphragm does not go down, your lungs have got no scope for expansion. The air sacs are not expanding, they're not breathing to their capacity. So you are depriving yourself of the intake of oxygen at that point of time. Yeah.
Yes. Okay, so that's our time.
Yeah.
Thank you to our panelists once again very much for joining us today. And thank you to all the participants. I'm sorry we were not able to answer all your questions, but you can still write to us. You can send us your questions. And also, Hello My Yog team has now a yoga forum online where you can ask all your yoga related questions. The name of the forum is Mitra. So please direct your questions there. If you have to direct any of the questions to one of our panelists, you can also send an email to Ayuryog and we will do the needful. So thank you to the team at Ayuryog and all the members, Vivek Vikasji, Praveenji, thank you so much. And also to Shivani and her whole team at Hello My Yog. Finally, I'd like to hand over the proceedings to Praveenji.
Thank you. Thank you, Eddie, Grandmaster Akshar, and Dr. Rao. I am also like to thank Sri Vivek Vikas sir and to entire Ayuryog team, especially Tusharji, Niranjanji, Amrenderji. Thank you, Harshvardhan again, and Shivani from Hello My Yoga. Let us all take a virtual tour of Expo Mart, where Ayuryog Expo 2020 will be hosted. Tusharji.
Thank you so much. That was a lovely video also. And looking forward to
Vivek
Ayuryog,
sir,
October 1st to 4th. And thank you all the attendees and participants, and hope we could benefit much from this. Please continue exercising your pranayama muscles, and yes, have a good day, have a good evening. Thank you.